Well, hundreds of New Yorkers have been arrested after protesting in Grand Central Station yesterday, calling for a ceasefire in the Hamas-Israel war. Take a look at this footage. Now, many of those protesting were New York Jews protesting against Israel. Talk about the Darwin Awards. Now, joining us now from Israel is filmmaker Ami Horowitz. Great to see you, Ami, as always. What did you make of the New York, a large contingency of the New York Jewish community there protesting against the actions of the Israeli government? How did that sit with you, Ami?
Yeah, I mean, not well, but I will say this, that yes, the Jews in New York tend to skew very liberal. But I would say for the most part, Jews who have had a variety of opinions on things domestic, political domestic, Trump, Biden, what have you, have all pretty much rallied around Israel, which is, by the way, not often what's happened. I think that this has been kind of a galvanizing effect for Jews across America, even liberal Jews in New York. So I think those people you saw there were definitely an outlier. But when I went to the Columbia University rally, yeah, there were a number of Jews who were with them, but there was a counter protest where you had hundreds of Columbia students all together singing peace songs. By the way, they're singing peace songs as the Columbia protesters are singing violent, even genocidal chants like "from the river to the sea," right? And what does the river to the sea mean? That's their chant. They chant every time. From the river, which is the Jordan River, to the Mediterranean Sea. What do you have in between? The Jewish state of Israel. So, yeah, that's the difference between the two sides right there.
James.
Well, and I mean, the thing is, that protest in Grand Central Station, it was 100,000 people plus. So it's more than just, some left-wing Jews who are, say, the Jewish population, as I say, all over the spectrum on this, as are many Muslims that we don't hear from. But are you concerned, though, that this huge push of protests at Grand Central in London on university campuses is really doing Hamas's work for it, in that it is essentially granting Hamas legitimacy for its actions by not saying, oh, what they did was bad? They're very equivocal, if at all condemnatory. And in a sense, then, do we have a danger that Hamas, this violent movement, becomes now the legitimate expression of the Palestinian cause?
You are absolutely right. And I'll point one thing out before I answer that question, because I think it's important. When you showed that video of the Victoria police kind of doing the dirty work for the protesters, the NYPD, very, very different. They do not look kindly on the Palestinian protesters. I mean, they won't say it, but I've spoken to the NYPD. Personally, they are very pro-Israel. Thank God. But yes, the question about granting Hamas legitimacy is a great one. And it's absolutely true. Look, I've been to these protests for many, many years. And I have asked every single one of them, including the ones I just went to at George Washington and Columbia. And I asked them, okay, fine. You stand for Palestine. You condemn Hamas. You condemn, not just condemn Hamas, you condemn the atrocities, the barbarity of what Hamas did to Israeli babies and the elderly. And they would not condemn it. I kid you not, this is not hyperbole. I could not find a single protester who said, I condemn Hamas, but stand with the Palestinians in Gaza. That's not what's happening here. These are people who are supporting Hamas and thereby supporting the atrocities. That's the problem.
Rita.
I think a lot of eyes have been open, Ami, across the political spectrum to what's happening in academia in particular, the anti-Semitism on university campuses. Do you think there is going to be a shift? You mentioned how the Jewish community, particularly in places like New York, lean very much left. Do you think there's going to be a political shift in that group when they see that the people that they stand with don't stand with them?
No, I think what you're going to see, and what you're seeing now, and I've called it for years, and for the first time we're seeing it, is that the universities have these massive endowments, right? And all they're looking to do is increase the size of their endowments. And look, let's be honest. The endowments are coming from billionaires. Many of them are pro-Israel. Many of them are Jewish. And these people finally, after years of giving money to this garbage, are finally realizing, well, maybe they're working at cross purposes to us. So we're starting to see a shift in the money, and I think that's good, but only because it helps push the administration. But fear not, this will have no effect on the professors, no effect on the students. All you see actually is a further hardening and radicalization of the professors and the student body. So I think we're going to see this become a bigger problem. I don't think it's going to ease up anytime soon, because what you're seeing is not just pro-Palestinian people. What you're seeing are the intersectional groups are all aligning with them, right? You saw Greta Thunberg with, and the whole climate change mafia are all standing and supporting the Palestinians, the Native Americans, the Black, the Hispanics. Now, again, most Black people, Hispanic people do not stand with them. But of course, the elites that go to these universities, they've all bought into this propaganda, and they're all staying together, and they're only hardening themselves. They're not getting any better.
And Ami, as you've mentioned before in some of your films, the funniest one is queers for Palestine or transgenders for Palestine, when we know full well if they rocked up into Gaza, they'd be thrown off the nearest rooftop with or without a war going on. But I also wanted to, unfortunately, I agree with you, the problem goes much further and much deeper, and part of the problem is these students end up in positions of power. Take, for example, Karine Jeanpierre. I imagine she was a student at some university or other, and she is now Joe Biden's press secretary. Watch, Ami, this classic bit of moral equivalency or even displacement, where she's asked about anti-Semitism, but then answers by talking about hate crimes against Muslims. Have a look.
Level of concern right now about the potential rise of anti-Semitism in light of everything that's going on in Israel?
So a couple of things. We have not seen any credible threats. Muslim and those perceived to be Muslim have endured a disproportionate number of hate-fueled attacks. And certainly President Biden understands that many of our Muslim, Arab Americans and Palestinian American loved ones and neighbors are worried about the hate being directed at their communities.
So, Ami, in the one breath, she dismisses anti-Semitism. No, we've seen no proof of any of that. And then fabricates this entire kind of anti-Muslim world that's going on. Your experience in America, is she talking through a hat?
Why did you make me sit through that clip again? I mean, look, let's okay. She claimed that she misheard it. I mean, you heard the question. The question was not mumbled. The question was very, very clear. And I have yet to hear her mishear another question prior. That's the only one she magically misheard. But let me say something very clear about the data. There are 5-to-1 attacks, Jewish versus Muslim. This is not an Islamic issue. This is a Jewish issue. 5 times more attacks on Jewish people than Muslim people in this country. Yet, of course, she pivoted the thing to talk about Muslim attacks because that's out of their playbook. That's what they're reading. They can't do an audible and change in midstream. It goes against their narrative. She did that. I'm sorry. She did not misheard. She pivoted specifically because she didn't want to talk about the uncomfortable truth that Jews are being attacked by people from the left. That's the issue.
And Rita, we were talking earlier, Ami, Rita was saying the question, do you think there will be those traditional left-leaning Jews? Many in Australia, I've had arguments, I know Rita and James have, left-leaning Jews who start to see, oh, hang on, maybe the left aren't our great friends. We're certainly seeing it happening in Australia. Do you think it will happen in America?
Well, no. I think, unfortunately, I'd like to say yes, but I think that this too will pass. And I think ultimately they're going to go back to the political priors. I don't think there'll be a significant shift. I think it will have a certain effect for sure, but not one large enough, I think, to make any kind of significant dent. I'll tell you this, though, that if you go to Florida and you ask gun shops who are buying your guns, they'll tell you liberal Jews are coming in and buying guns. So if that's some kind of precursor, maybe that's good to hear. I'm not sure.
Ami Horowitz, always great to chat to you. Thanks so much for coming on Outsiders.